Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to Grand Tactician, the Civil War. This is obviously a economic simulator set in the Star Trek universe. Or maybe not. I'm sorry, the title leaves very little to the imagination, and so I felt the need to subvert expectations just a little bit. This is, of course, a game set in the American Civil War. A game with a lot of really interesting ideas, some of which are executed fairly well, and others which are not executed quite so well. Nevertheless, it is one of the most ambitious tactical Civil War games I have seen pretty damn much ever, frankly, and it is definitely worth a quick little look, so that is exactly what we're going to do today. Maybe Fridays will become like game recommendations day kind of things, slash reviewy things. So, what you see here is, of course, a fairly comprehensive map of the American Civil War, where you have the various states divided between the South and the North. You may notice, of course, that I can't see very far into Northern Territory, but I do have a rough idea of the infrastructure, because, well, you know, we used to be one country not that long ago, so not too much has changed. However, I can't see the exact location of armies unless I have intelligence gathering abilities. The Army of Virginia, under the command of Robert E. Lee here, for example, it has a decent amount of intelligence gathering because of a trait, a balloon corps, which gives it a pretty damn big boost to intelligence gathering, so I know that the Army of Pennsylvania is over here, and I know that it numbers around about 26,000 men. That number can go up and down quite significantly. I've seen it go as high as 32,000, so 20 to 30,000 odd soldiers. We've also got the Army of Northeastern Virginia and the Department of Pennsylvania up here for a grand total of roughly 30,000 soldiers. Far more pressing concern, however, is the Army of the Potomac and the Department of the Ohio, both significantly stronger at 26 and, what was that, another 20,000? The icon hovering thing's a bit but another 20,000. Moving on the Army of the Shenandoah, some 30,000 strong. The game does have a full 3D tactical combat system, which of course we will be demonstrating in a little bit, but there is so much more to this game than just the combat. You can already see, of course, a fair bit of infrastructure, like, for example, ferry crossings. If you do not command the ferry crossing, you cannot use the ferry crossing. You've got ports through which trade flows with the various European nations, and they can be blockaded, as the Northerners are doing to me right now. The Confederate Navy's not a whole lot to brag about. You've also got rail yard stations, you can see here, which allows for the rapid movement of troops, very useful, though it does take up a railroad transport capacity since you've only got so many locomotives in your country. You also have river travel, which uses this own form of transport, and also sea transports. So theoretically, I could, for example, have an army all the way down here and move them up the coast, if it weren't for the fact that they'd be instantly sunk by the Northerners, that is. There is a naval element to the game as well. In fact, I believe I've got a navy around here somewhere. Well, navy. Here you go, New Orleans Squadron, made up of a bunch of riverboats. It's a navy of sorts, okay? And don't underestimate the usefulness of riverboats. If you do get to an area like, for example, up in the region here, this general area, you can get up here. Suddenly, riverboats become a rather interesting little strategic effect, as they're capable of dealing with ferry crossings, attacking forts, ruining telegraph stations, and generally causing mischief and mayhem. Sadly, there is no naval real-time tactical combat, unfortunately, because I'd love to see it, because well, the auto-resolve is rather derpy. I think we've got a wonderful example up here, if this navy will allow it. Yes, Battle Hampton Road, a Confederate victory, where 2 Federal ships sunk and 2 Union ships sank. Right. Well, a victory's a victory, I do suppose. Fair enough. But you do have the ability to construct new combat vessels, as you can see here in the fleet. The CSS Virginia steam frigate is currently undergoing repairs. It should be done in another couple of months or so, which will be quite good, since I'll have 2 here, 3 more in fact, 3 steam frigates that should be ready around about that same time-ish. I might even be able to send the Jamestown out there as well. All of the combat in this case is auto-resolved again. The game also has a pretty damn massive and interesting financial system, but unfortunately it's virtually all completely hands-off, which it makes a great deal of sense. Jefferson Davis couldn't simply just go like, you build a factory over there or something, and the vice versa, of course, for Lincoln. But the game has such a cool production system, and, excuse me, as the game is going to lag quite ridiculously here for a little bit. Look at all of this, and this is a lot of it turned up, otherwise it'll freeze for like 5 minutes. You've got tobacco production, you've got food production, you've got coal mines, you've got so many cool resources with a fully functioning export system as well. So if you do not actually consume these goods domestically, it's shipped overseas and it earns you money. You of course also get money based on the trade tariffs, and therefore having high tariffs is very beneficial, because it will protect your internal market from outside competition, meaning that it is more profitable to produce things in the southern nations, and therefore allowing you to build up more industry. The only thing you can influence directly is various subsidies, which need to be unlocked via a research tree. For example, right now I am giving the highest possible industrial and agricultural subsidies. That will also take the effect of monthly report. I love this aspect, by the way. I love the old style telegraph paper and the detailed little role-player reports. That's really cool. The monthly economic report, for example. His Excellency the President. The current rating of our nation is BBB, which is mediocre. That is a credit rating in the game. Our debt increased by 25 million. Currently, our liability amount to 110 million. The economy is currently expanding, and our tax revenue increased by 854,000 during the last month. And 1 company were founded hereof 1 foundry company. Total export value was 18 million, while 4.8 million worth of goods was imported. So it's a nice and healthy economy. Well, except for the massive deficit. You may already have noticed that. Yes, warfare is ridiculously expensive, and since we currently have no income tax, we don't have the legislation for it, our only income is a 5% sales tax and a tariff. That's it. That's the government's only form of income next to land sales. Meanwhile, keeping some 86,000 men in the field is an expensive task. But that isn't actually a problem. You're gonna take loans. You're gonna take loans constantly. You are not going to be running a plus at any point during the war, pretty much. But that leads us to the policies trees, which is essentially the research tree. Here you've got access to King Cotton, for example, which increases my agricultural subsidies, which in turn increase the amount of agricultural goods I can produce, and also ship off to Europe. It also allows me to try and tempt the various European powers into intervening in the American Civil War, which would of course benefit me quite considerably. You also got industrial policies, which allows me to put in more industrial subsidies, hopefully getting me more industry, something the South is in dire need of. And you've also got this, funding. Government funding, 3.5 days left. Once this happened, I will basically start printing up a bond to increase my credit rating, which will increase my credit rating by +2, getting me back up to AAA. The credit rating is important because every time I take a loan, I commit to paying interest on that loan. So long as your credit rating is high, your interest is going to stay fairly low. But if your credit rating starts plummeting, the interest rating is going to start exploding until you're going to be paying so much interest you will not be able to purchase any more units or ships or anything. That is the biggest economic problem you have. Honestly, I would love to see a bit more of a research tree, a little bit more of an economic system, a bit more in the way of laws and regulations, because you can, for example, pass an income tax all the way up here, which is the thing I'm going to be heading for awfully quickly. And you also can unlock new weapons and military organizations during the campaign as well. You can also use diplomacy to open up the import of weaponry. All in all, the campaign aspect is really, really cool and pretty damn well done, though it could use a bit more meat, shall we say. Now, let's have a quick look at armies here, as the army of the Shenandoah is about to have a lot of guests in all due likelihood. Let's... Florida State Militia. Close game, but not quite. There we are. The Army of the Shenandoah. You can see the units that are outlined here. These are those that have not yet arrived. I'd really hope to get a couple more batteries of guns in place before I needed to go into battle, but sadly, that is not going to happen. We do have one recently recruited battery, Smith's Battery here, under Major Edmund Kirby Smith, equipped with 12-pounder Napoleon guns, generously donated by the Yankees up north. I was again hoping to have more batteries like that, but, well... You then have an army organization. Right now, my military is at 0, so I only have access to these division-level organizations and the army-level organization. Later on, I will be able to divide this into corps, which would be really goddamn helpful, as currently the army is rather unwieldy, shall we say. We'll get back into that in a little bit, as the game has a very unique and interesting command system. Now, we've got our infantry here. These are recently recruited infantry with reboard muskets, which is good enough for right now. Then we have Little and Pillow and Barksdale. Barksdale is my oldest commander, but his units are ragtag militia troops, more or less. I don't want to sink too much resources into that. But Little's men here, 2,231 boys there, and Yule's brigade under Pillow, these could use some upgrades. Right now they're using Springfield muskets, which are old and outdated. Luckily, we just unlocked diplomacy, so we can replace those with Enfield rifled muskets. You will see that the effective range is 250 yards on the Springfields, it's 400 yards on the Enfields, and they also have slightly higher rate of fire and better accuracy, so we're going to go right ahead and upgrade those weapons to good old-fashioned British Lee Enfields. The Enfield, quote-unquote. There we go. You've also got a perk system for the units, by the way. We'll have a little bit more of a look at that later. I've got some cavalry here, Stewart's cavalry. I need to promote him damn soon. Right now, I've only got 2 units of kinda useless cav here because their units are way too small. You can also recruit new units, and you can also determine their size. You've got infantry, cavalry, artillery, and horse artillery, and you can determine the size of them. And you need to recruit them depending upon where you actually can recruit them, depending upon volunteers, and later on also the draft. You don't want to recruit too many people from the same area, because of course replacing those troops are going to be a problem, particularly as they come with contracts. Oh yes. After 6 more months, this unit will pack up its bags and head on home, regardless of how shit my strategic position at the time might be. We're going to keep the 6-pounder field guns because they're pretty goddamn awesome, and we're going to keep the 24-pounder howitzers as well. Mixed muskets, civilian-issue smoothbore armament. Absolutely awful. God, no. I want to keep some Enfield muskets, so... the Lawrence and the Enfield. The Enfields are slightly better, I do believe, but not by much. Let's hand out some Lawrences to these guys, shall we? You can also determine their regimental colors as well, by the way, which is really kind of cool. There we go, some Lawrence rifles. You can see these guys over here are far more flamboyantly attired. Oh, yes. Right, there we are. That's about as good as it is going to get for the time being. I could give these guys some better weaponry, but if I get unlucky and they get wiped out, considering their small unit size, I don't want to wave farewell to some actually good cavalry weaponry. No, thank you. So, let's begin the playtime here, and very, very soon, there we go, the army of the Shenandoah is going to be attacked by William Tecumseh Sherman. Ah, Sherman. I don't want to humiliate you, I'm actually quite a fan of you. Oh well, fair enough, let's go to the play battle scene then. And here we are on the deployment screen. Also, you will forgive me a slight bit of cheating right there. I loaded up the battle and then realized there was a light rain going on. And whilst that's not a problem for the actual combat, I loathe the sound it makes. So here we are again, now fighting George B. McClellan with Sherman right behind him, and oh man, again, my god, I love the presentation, the cool-ass little RP briefings. Man, I wish more games would do this. Oh, that is so awesome. You even get a detailed breakdown of your units and the enemy as well, supply situation, you get a briefing. We're up against 21,000 men and 29 guns, but there's an entire second army coming up behind McClellan, so we're probably up against close to 50,000 troops. And we have some objectives on the map that we need to hold. Greenwood Heights, Millwood Pike, and Martinsburg Pike. Those are some kind of awful objectives. These two aren't too bad. That one sucks a bit of donkey dick. Right, what's the scout report we've got here then? Oh, goddammit. Minimize the game. There we go. Right, our scout report, the enemy is near South Branch Bridge, Virginia, and our army is prepared for battle. Alright, South Branch Bridge, Virginia. So let's zoom down a little bit on this beautiful paper map and see if we can't find where the enemy army is entering from. There will be an icon here where you can see entrances and exits, and it will be blue, as our scouts will have... Oh, hello. Right, well, that wasn't particularly stealthy, so they will be coming from Cedar Creek right here, and they will be following the Cedar Creek grade initially. Alright, that is very important. Roads are vital imports in this game, because units moving through woods are going to get really exhausted really goddamn quickly, so you do not want to be doing that. Okay, they are bound pretty much by one single road leading through this area. That's the Cedar Creek grade. It does split off here, heading to the NW Turnpike to Romney, but with the two objectives being here and here, we can be fairly confident that they will be heading towards the main arterial road near Toll House right here. After which, they will probably be entering into Winchester and then following this road towards Seaford and the Millwood Pike. They might also potentially go down the Millwood Pike Road as well. So my best intercept points would be here and here. I'm going to pretty much discount this one because I do not have the military to defend all of this. And with two objectives, I should be good. Right, we're going to be doing a little bit of editing and skipping and jumping here because these battles can last for a very long time. I'm going to take you through the deployment procedures though, because there's quite a lot of interesting little tactical aspects. You can see, for example, the artillery here have these firing lines. They're obviously blocked by trees, they are blocked by the elevation, and they're also blocked by individual trees as well. And they're also, of course, blocked by friendly units. Now, in some cases, this can be rather retarded because I have had cavalry, I'm going to keep making that mistake forever, artillery on a hill with infantry laying down in front of it, and yet still the artillery is like, no, can't see anything, sorry. Little bit too sensitive, just a tad. Right, where were we? Right, Millwood Pike and Seafur right here. Now this is of course a forested area which has some issues, whilst this is a fairly open area. This Oh, let's not move the entire army of the Shenandoah. This again is why you would really want some core organizations, because right now this guy is the only guy who can issue orders. You can see the red lines on the map here. He can issue orders to Barksdale's division. Barksdale must then issue orders to the actual brigades under his command. Now, they can issue commands over longer distances via couriers. For example, if I were to try and issue an order to Garnett over here, a courier would be dispatched with the orders to Garnett, who would then have to read, understand the orders, and then issue them to the artillery, adding in a pretty severe order delay. Now, orders can be carried out instantly, however, within the range of the bugle calls, at least simple orders like advance, retreat, lay down, stuff like that. And they do have the historical bugle calls in game as well, which is absolutely autistic and awesome at the same time. Right, Garnett's artillery. So we want to be watching this road and this road if at all possible. Now, we do have an area here with a built-up fence, which would give us a little bit of cover, but it would strain my range quite badly. The 6-pounders wouldn't have an issue with this. The 24-pound howitzer, a little bit more, but not a catastrophic problem. That would give me a reasonable degree of cover and also the flexibility to potentially move them over to cover this road. Yes, if I just move them over to like this, I've got actually pretty damn good coverage of that area. This place, unless I deposit artillery, yeah, there is an opportunity if I have to block that area off, but that's not going to be the foremost concern. So, we're going to worry primarily about this approach right here, because if I was the enemy, I would probably be heading down this road and this road. So we will be deploying under that assumption. This will also give me a little bit more range and a little bit more flexibility. I do wish you could chop down the individual trees occasionally, because that thing is in just a little bit of an annoying position. Right, I also have a battery of 12-pounder Napoleon somewhere under the command of Smith, if I'm not mistaken. Smith, where are you hiding? You do have an OOB. Unfortunately, it opens up a massive goddamn window. I would love this to be a little bit less than this. Early. Now, yes, Smith was the commander of the battery. Right. Let's get Early up here, and we've got Smith's 12-pounder Napoleons. Right, for the time being, we're simply just going to deploy them. That angle is kind of shit. That angle is kind of shit. That angle is actually kind of awful. We're going to deploy them, keeping an eye on this road for now in the cover of this fence here. Right, there we go. And we're going to make sure that the commander, of course, is nearby. Right, you also have the ability to build field fortifications. We can see down here, engineering points. So let's do just that. To do it, you need to select an infantry formation. Right, we are going to want fortifications here. We are not going to want fortifications here, not to begin with. We're going to try and block most of the enemy's advances with infantry here, and then potentially some infantry here as well to make them not particularly interested in approaching the guns, if at all possible. A little bit of barricades here, maybe a little bit of barricades here. Right. Now, this is where I've got one of the complaints right here, because you can't actually see the precise cost of the bloody parapets as you're building them. In this case, I would want the parapets to be extending out like this. So let's start them over here, and let's extend them a nice old distance. That should be pretty reasonable. We'll mark that, and we'll build it, and that cost me 4 points. We're also going to upgrade these. There we go. Now they're upgraded parapets. Now, we're not going to leave that in the hands of these guys, because their equipment is kind of awful. Instead, we'll have our flamboyant boys go over here. Yes, that seems only reasonable to me. Let's see then, how many can we occupy here? We might have to drag it out a little bit further. The deployment system is, as you can see, a hint derpy. There is an order to keep the unit in cover, but it has a bit of an issue locking on, as you can see. Let's see here. We're definitely going to have to extend this out a bit more. There we are. So let's do that with building the parapet. And you can't sadly attach it quite as easily as you would hope, but you can extend it out like this. So that unit is about that wide. Do we want to slant it a little bit? Slanting it a little bit might not be a terrible idea, though it might block some of the artillery's line of fire. Good enough for now. There we are. And we can place them. Now, luckily, they are intelligent enough to take up position on the other one as well, so you can actually mix and match the cover a little bit. We'll move him up, and we will immediately tell him to not allow initiative, so that the unit will not pivot out of cover. And that did indeed screw with the 24-pounders line of sight a little bit. That's not the worst thing in the universe. In fact, why don't we have the 24-pounders perhaps aid the river approach as well? That puts them out of command range, which isn't ideal, but good enough. Right, so you get the basic idea of this here, so I'm going to finish up the deployment, and then we'll get to some actual fighting. Rightio, that looks good enough for governmental work. Over on the flanking case, they try to push me over here, which I would be surprised to see, but it may happen. I am quite horribly outnumbered, after all. I have placed the 2 units of more or less worthless goddamn cavalry. They have received extra fortifications, so there's also little Spanish riders in front of their positions, which should make it very difficult for the enemy to screw them over, at the very least quickly. We have my least effective infantry still using mixed muskets over here under the command of Barksdale. They are going to form a reserve. Then we have got some more actually good infantry here in the form of Anderson and Donaldson's brigade watching this river, and the main approach is guarded by the bulk of the artillery, as well as my flamboyant boys and Price's division, with the units in, not Garnett's, but Pillow's division being my reserves. Now, if I push them up just in front of the artillery, I will block their line of sight, but if I push them up to about this point here, I will be able to fire over their heads, so they are going to be a reserve. And you're gonna need reserves in this game, oh god, are you? The enemy AI is one of those little things that are... See, in certain regards, the enemy AI actually does a pretty damn good job, whilst in others it does an absolutely atrociously poor job. On the campaign map, for example, it does a fairly good job of building up pretty damn large armies and attacking you with them in big, overwhelming numbers. Right now, for example, the North has gathered some 50,000 troops against me. The Southern AI, by the way, gets its ass absolutely handed to it, unless you let it build up its army for a year at least. You're just going to steamroll them immediately, because you will have access to much better rifles than them. The mixed muskets of the initial Southern forces are bloody worthless, like actually genuine garbage. Not just like they're worse, oh no, like they're actually kind of useless, like actually genuinely kind of useless. If you try to fight them, you will be seeing like 3-to-1 trades up against the Northern muskets. It's actually awful. Oh god, it's a nightmare. But on the battlefield, the weaknesses begin to show again awfully swiftly, as whilst the AI can be reasonably adept at attacking, it is absolutely worthless at defending. You've seen the objective markers scattered around the map. The AI... It can detect them when it's the one moving towards them, but if it's trying to defend, it will just place itself somewhere on the map randomly. I've had a map that looked a lot like this one, where the enemy were ensconced here in full-on entrenchments and everything, whereas the objective was over here and here. So what I did was I saw the enemy here, and okay, and I just went around them, occupy the objective and the high ground, and then just sat there firing artillery at them. The enemy didn't do anything. It waited for the next day, at which point I of course get my building points. I built parapets on top of the hill and absolutely butchered the little morons as they tried to unlodge me. Yes, the AI has issues in that regard, many issues. You can see now that I've also detached skirmishers, and I will be using them as, well, scouts, basically, to just have a little peek ahead here and see if they can't find some hints of the enemy. We'll deposit them near the riverbank here. I would expect to see them coming on the road in not too damnably long. Possibly they might also be coming up over here. Right, we've got fog, 52 Fahrenheit. Right, the fog. Ugh. The fog does suck a fairly large load, as it does impede spotting ranges quite significantly, which is going to make it a hell of a lot more difficult to find them. You can occasionally see dust clouds way off in the distance, but that too is a little bit of a visibility problem now, isn't it? Anyhow, I feel pretty darn confident in my position, so let me speed up time a little bit until we encounter some enemies. I'm tempted to deploy yet further skirmishes, but I've got the main approaches covered for the time being, so let's simply just see what happens. Villains! Villains have been spotted, and right about where we'd expect them as well. Now you can see that it's already getting a little bit dark. They spent quite a lot of time moving their way up the creek there, probably scouting ahead a little bit, which means we might get another day before the major engagement, which is good in that it will allow me to further fortify my positions, and bad in that it will allow the enemy to bring up yet further reinforcements. I think I would prefer it, though, if I got a little bit extra time. So, let's deploy some more skirmishers and try to delay the enemy as much as possible. Ara, I think the little bastards are heading for the objective up north. Well, that's not very convenient for me at all. No. I think we shall, give it a little poke, a little prod, a little bit of an indication that no, good friends. We're over here, and you should totally come talk to us a little bit more closely. Yes. There's no need to head all the way up north there. There's nothing awaiting you there. Just empty wasteland, really. Certainly no victory objectives worth your notice. A few musket balls might be able to convince them of that. And conveniently, we've caught them spread out in a nice long column. Oh my. We might be able to inconvenience some artillery boys here, we might. Unfortunately, skirmishers cannot occupy all buildings, nor can most infantry units. There's only a select few buildings, like this one here, or this one here, or that one over there, in fact, which I think the enemy might be wanting to pop in. No, maybe not. Which can be occupied, which makes a certain degree of sense, because otherwise I guess fighting in cities would be rather nightmarish. But you can occupy buildings, and it does, of course, give you some pretty nice little defensive benefits. Alright, the skirmishing has begun. The guns are, of course, trying to defend themselves, as you would expect. They're not just going to sit there and take it, after all. That would be a hint unfair. But I've got skirmishers trying to engage that infantry over there, and I've got 2 units of skirmishers shooting at them. Now, artillery is, of course, plenty dangerous, but, well, here's the thing. We're still dealing with basically smoothbore artillery. Now, yes, they've certainly come up with some rather fancy innovations at this point in history. Like, for example, you're starting to get explosive shells, fragmentation shells, and such other lovely nonsense, which can be absolutely lethal, instead of just the good old-fashioned round ball, which, you know, if you get that bouncing through some ranks, it'll do some damage, definitely. But it is nevertheless not that lethal of a invention. Let's just keep you pointed towards those boys over there, shall we? And his accuracy leaves a lot to be desired, and as you can see, Donaldson's detachment here has not taken a single damn solitary casualty. Meanwhile, the battery, it's not faring too damn well, is it? Musket fire as well, of course, is not exactly the most lethal in the universe, but it does do damage. And infantry. Now, infantry will absolutely kill skirmishers, definitely. After all, you've got some 2,000 men here firing, but they will trade rather poorly. They've killed 17, I've killed 42. The best way to deal with skirmishers is with yet more skirmishers, and boy, again, if you're playing the Confederacy early on, man, will you really hate skirmishers. Because, of course, you will be dealing with mixed muskets, whereas the enemy will have rifled Springfields with Minet balls. Oh, mucho painu, mucho painu. Also, I love the sound effects, too. The way that you can just hear the constant knatter and piff-poof of bullets firing, like as the skirmish lines fight one another. It really is so goddamn cool. Frankly, I'd love to pull back Anderson's detachment here, as I'm pretty sure I could get in a much better area to fight the Union here, but I also really want to buy some more time to lay into the first battery. We could risk trying and get a little bit closer. I'm a little bit worried about my rear, though, because you can command skirmishers in real time, which is very, very useful, and honestly, if you couldn't do that, they'd frankly be worthless. If they had the kind of command delay that everything else has, oh Jesus, you would never deploy them because you would have no way whatsoever of recalling them effectively. Like, you'd throw them out there and they'd probably just all die. So yeah, you wouldn't want that. Yeah, Anderson's detachment's taking a bit of a beating. Let's recall those skirmishers right there. Now, there really is no problem if they break, because they're not broken, they're simply choosing to withdraw to their regiments, but moving forward has really helped me out here, as I've been able to screw the hell out of the first battery, and in fact, Gorman's little detachment of artillery here as well has moved forward far too aggressively, far too quickly, and it's going to take some casualties too. Yule's detachment is pulling back in the face of the 2nd Brigade, but they have done loads and loads and loads of casualties, so I'm not too worried about that. Alright, we'll pull off a couple more volleys, but it's starting to get about time when I want to be pulling back here. Oh, the AI is being an idiot. Oh, Jesus. Right, that's a problem. Right, Donaldson's detachment needs to try and withdraw. Unfortunately, with the AI doing its derp there. Alright, you just back the hell off. You can see that the skirmishers, again, if they had the same kind of order delay as everything else, the skirmishers would just get murdered the first time the enemy decided to run at them, and that would be the end of them pretty much each and every single solitary time. And having skirmishers be routinely defeated by blind retard charges is pretty kind of silly. Unfortunately, Chetham's detachment is being a little bit idiotic as well here, and is not really helping out. Normally they would pivot to engage the enemy automatically, but they're being a bit idiotic about it. We can turn them in there. My skirmishers over here too are starting to take a little bit of a beating, but again, they're training super well, so I'm not too worried about that at all. Alright, we can get a couple of good point-blank volleys into their rear and flank here, which is going to do some pretty damn respectable damage. Whilst Donald's detachment is probably going to get broken for that. Yes, in all due likelihood. Right, let's begin pulling back Chetham as well. Back to this entire unit here. We can start disengaging. But my primary objective has been quite well achieved. I've been able to delay the enemy another hour, pretty much, which is fantastic, and I'm pretty much guaranteed that the enemy is going to have to approach me during the dark of night, and probably give up and wait for tomorrow, which will allow me the opportunity to further fortify my position. And dark it did indeed get, leading us on to the next morning, where, as you can see, I have been able to further reinforce my positions. This leaves me in a pretty damn good situation, frankly. Now we are recovering the skirmishes, as you can see right here, and the enemy might continue on to the objective, which I really don't mind. I am already going to be building up far more victory points than them, so that's not going to be a particular worry. So, let's head on forward to the next engagement. Ah, perfect. The enemy took the bait of the skirmishes and are moving in full force towards my main positions. Oh, being a strategic mastermind genius of unparalleled amazingness can be such a great gift sometimes. Well, they are really not going to like what's in front of them here. Full-on parapets with effective troops behind them, armed with proper weaponry and everything in between, in addition to a river crossing. That is going to suck some serious ass. It also has allowed me to probably focus them into an even smaller area, which might allow me to bring even more artillery to bear. Right now, the 24-pound howitzers just opened up, and Smith's 10-12-pounder Napoleons, of course, are also in a good firing position. Are those a little detachment? Yes, the enemy has detached some skirmishers. That's fine and fair, not a problem. We can engage them, no issues. However, if the enemy is going to be firing at range, let us issue the long-range order. Now you get to see the delay in actions there, where it's going to take a second for the commander to dispatch a messenger. You can hear him going clippity-clop there. To actually head over to Little's division to give him order to engage at maximum range. Now this unit here is responding simply because it's being fired at from maximum range, so obviously it's going to shoot back. Now, I did mention that skirmishes are pretty damn good against large infantry blocks, but, well, this is a large infantry block in incredibly good cover, and skirmishes can only do so much after all. I am wondering if I shouldn't start moving over some reserves, though, because if the enemy is heading down here, they're undoubtedly heading down here as well, and it might be good to get ahead of it by making sure that the the cavalry has Barksdale's division backing them up. In fact, I think we should do just that, just in case. Just in case. We've still got plenty of reserves over here, so we've got no particular problem with that, and the enemy skirmishers were driven off nice and easy. Right, that was just a little bit of a poke. The enemy is now probably going to start reorganizing and seeing if they can't figure out what exactly is in front of them. This is one of the cool things the AI will do. Once it runs into resistance, it will then go like, oh, okay, right, there's something nasty over there. Let's fall back for a bit, try and organize, and it'll probably bring up reserves to maybe set up a full-on attack. Now, what you can do, which is really cool as well, is you can set up orders here for the infantry with various artificial AI instructions like assault, attack, defend, and screen. The AI is not particularly good at carrying out these orders, honestly. It has its own set of... What the game really needs is like a report from the actual commander. If you set him to assault, I would love to get a report going like, okay, I've encountered the enemy, sir. I have so many men. I think the enemy has so many men. I am going to continue to skirmish with the enemy to look for weakness and then carry out an assault. If he encounters the enemy then, the AI will make a decision, like, can I assault? If the answer is yes, there should be another report sent like, okay, I will attack, I will charge in X amount of minutes or something. Or if the enemy is too strong or simply occupying good positions, he will say, the enemy is too strong. I will continue to skirmish to see if there's an opportunity to assault. That would be amazing. Because let me deviate here for a small second whilst I just enjoy the artillery battle a little bit. In fact, you know what? This is the kind of position in which we should really be focusing a bit more artillery on the enemy over there. Let's, again, we'll put forward a few skirmishers amongst those who still have decent numbers, just to keep an eye on if the enemy begins crossing over here in numbers, because if they don't, I think it's about time we reorganize our artillery to cover that approach. Right, so the idea of playing a strategy game, playing an RTS game like this via issuing orders to your commanders is a really, really, really cool and interesting one. And there's another game that tried to do it as well, Scourge or War, a game series in fact, which attempted to have the game be entirely playable via an order system. So you would play locked to your field of view on your general, and then you would send out instructions to your other generals. For example, you might write a missive to Early's division saying, hold at all costs, or screen with the enemy, skirmish with them actively, and you would be giving out various levels of instructions, like hold, but withdraw if pressured, hold at all costs, hold lightly, draw the enemy on, such things. And that's a really, really goddamn cool idea. The problem is, the AI simply just was not able to carry out that kind of complex instructions. Darnation, they are going to attack me from here, aren't they? Little cheaty bastards. Right, well, I suppose I can't blame the game too loudly for doing what makes sense in this situation, so oh well. Now you'll also hear the infantry will begin to withdraw piecemeal, just little bit by little bit, little by little bit, trying to get away from the enemy whilst not exposing themselves too much to too much enemy fire. Meanwhile, the enemy skirmishers, probably having a numerical advantage here, will be trying to push on in against me. I really like that. I just wish the AI was capable of doing that properly more often. Right, if that's what's going to be happening, what we're going to do then is we're going to pull these back again, but we are going to issue a move at signal order, like so. I also hate that a little thing disappears. If you don't hover over it in time, it will simply just disappear, and you won't have the ability to issue the order you want correctly. That would very well stay. It also means that once an order is given, you can't easily countermand it. Instead of, for example now, if I wanted to issue another movement order, I would first have to issue a halt order, wait for the unit to actually, halt, and then issue the new movement order. Otherwise, the unit would freak the hell out, which is rather unfortunate. We shall also issue the order, incidentally, to... that isn't good enough. Let's cancel that. To make the move forward. That's not quite right either. That's not quite right either. That's definitely not right. Come on, come on, come on. It would be nice to have something like a system where if you let go of the mouse, it didn't actually register that order. That's close, but not quite. God damn it, I can't quite get it the way I want it to be. Yeah. Right, okay. Command, commander, turn off, use cover. And... see, it's just not quite right. There, that's pretty close, right? And move at signal. There we go. That way, I've got that order queued up if and when I feel like using it. Right, the AI is probably going to be maneuvering for a little bit, so once again, let's do a little bit of a time skip. Ah yes, another wee old AI problem. The AI, even when it knows that there's something mean in front of it, it has a nasty habit of utilizing its cannons as assault guns. Very unfortunate habit, particularly when you do so right in front of the enemy, who can then, of course, deploy skirmishers and start making the life for your gunners awfully miserable. I have had no shortage of captured Union guns in this playthrough for this very goddamn reason. Especially as I feel quite confident getting a little bit closer here, as now, of course, they're panicking and trying to get the hell away. Which means that there is no canister shot ready in those weapons, meaning I can get awfully close and personal with them. Poor AI. See, that really is the issue. As much as I adore the idea of this hyper-complicated AI system where you issue all of these orders and you have order delays and everything, you need an AI capable of actually dealing with all of that. In all due likelihood, what happened there was that the AI had queued up a series of movement orders, and it included the AI simply moving the artillery down this road. But because the artillery was a little bit too far ahead of the infantry, it didn't get a halt order. By the time it located and actually, oh god, there's infantry in front of us, they stopped right there and began deploying their guns for action without any supporting infantry, and so they get slaughtered. Whereas the order to, stop them and move behind the infantry, like up here, was probably stuck somewhere in the command chain. My god, I look forward to the day when we have AI good enough to make games like this work properly, because, it will be absolutely amazing. Have I talked about how much I love the sound effects, by the way? The thunder of guns! Boom, 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 bang! The way the smoke kind of sticks around, too. Oh, I do love it. On particularly heavy engagements, like a little bit like over here, the smoke will just be covering the battlefield, and it is so very, very cool. What's that noise? Oh, enemy artillery heading straight towards my entrenched cavalry. Well, that'll work. I did order these guys to lay down to minimize their casualties. I just had a little peek up there to see if there's anything in front of me. There isn't. Lay back down again, boys. There's no point in taking unnecessary casualties after all. More enemy artillery wandering miles out ahead of its position, though in this case it is doing so as a concerted move with some infantry behind it, so it's not quite as stupid. Num. Is that far enough ahead to the point where I wish to send skirmishes? Honestly, not. That is actually a relatively safe area for the guns to go. That's not too bad, actually. That is not too bad. What I will do, however, is I will prepare a little bit of a bombardment. Can the 24-pounders see it? They can. Right, okay. In that case, what we're going to do is we're going to tell the artillery to prepare a bombardment against that position right there. That should be quite fun. Did they actually wander into range? They did. God damn it. Yeah, again, as much as I absolutely adore the ideas, you've almost got to role-play it a little bit. Like, you've got to give the AI the ability to make mistakes. Almost like you can't pounce on every error the AI makes because, well, it's going to do things like this, where presumably it's lost sight of my infantry over here for a second, and so it's like, okay, I can just assault gun these positions. No, sadly you can't. That's going to end very, very poorly for you. And I could deploy skirmishers now and really punish them, but instead I'm just gonna lay this unit down right here. They'll be driven off by musketry to its suite anyways. Right. See, this is better. The AI is beginning to get a little bit of position up and going. It's beginning to put up its brigades. It's sending full skirmishes, and it's beginning to try and actually establish contact with my front lines. And speaking of, let's issue the order to engage at long range so that we can effectively deal with their skirmishes as well. Right, the barrage is prepared. Now, when the barrage fire is happening, you will see that the guns will be firing a lot faster. It's going to increase the rate at which your men will get tired, but it'll create a very intensive bombardment. Now, one of the ways I've been using this is actually having dedicated battery of 24-pounders. As the Union, you're likely to have to attack the Confederates more often than not. One strategy I came up with that was very effective was a big battery of 24-pound howitzers, which would prepare a bombardment against Union lines, which were formed up like in fortified positions, much like this, in fact. Oh, are you, No, you are firing, right? And then I would have a commander behind... Oh god, I didn't press that button, did I? No, I didn't. I would have a commander behind them in the successive lines order. That means that the unit will form up one behind the other, like so. And once the bombardment was underway, I would then order them to begin attacking. And the AI would actually carry out that relatively well. One unit would move forward and begin engaging the enemy. They would eventually get pushed back because the parapets and the cover would of course give the defenders a massive advantage, but then the next unit would move up. The casualties would begin to mount on the defenders under the heavy barrage, and by the time the third unit was ready to move, they would be just about ready to break, and a charge would overrun their positions. It's expensive, but the thing is, defensive positions are pretty goddamn good. There's a reason why many defensive engagements during the war lasted for a very, 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 very long time indeed, and why Robert E. Lee was first and foremost renowned for his love of the shovel, the spade with which to dig defenses. Let's see if the AI manages to get its shit together and launch a proper concerted attack, shall we? Right now, it's just sending individual infantry to try and probe my positions, which is not going to work out very well at all, as it'll be slowed down by the defenses and then caught straight slap down in front of my units, where it's going to be taking a lot of casualties awfully quickly. There we are. It is moving up further units. Okay, good. It certainly could have done this better, in that it could actually have moved up all the units simultaneously, but it is at least trying. It's making an effort. That is something, is it not? Again, these poor bastards caught on the de facto wire of the American Civil Warredness are going to take a lot of casualties awfully quickly. I'm going to take some as well, but in comparison, it's not going to be that bad. I'd actually like to see the enemy make a little bit of an attempt over on the flanks here, since I'm considerably weaker in these areas, but they can't, of course, know that, since they do have fog of war, just like I do. See, now this is better. This is better. This is a consecutive attack right here. This is much better. They're moving up this unit, trying to engage the enemy, and then they're going to move up another fresh unit behind it. In fact, with no more enemy units really showing up over here, I think it's high time we move Buford's division over to... Oh, no, it's being done. Cancel order. You're being a bit stupid. Not Buford, Barksdale. Buford's the bloody cavalry. Barksdale. It's high time we move Barksdale up to provide me with a potential reserve right here. I'm not in any immediate danger, as again, they gave me a whole extra day to prepare, so my defenses are pretty gosh darn solid, but again, remember, when I issue that order, the commander needs to issue a written order, which will then be delivered via courier all the way. You need to be issuing your orders well in advance of when you actually need them to take effect. I do also have the potential to move up these units to flank them, and I might, when and if my lines begin to waver a little bit. Right now, we are going to see a very spirited exchange of musketry at close range here. The casualties are going to start mounting on both sides, but an order of magnitude more rapidly for the Union, as they are caught without cover and stuck on my defenses. brave little boys, though. They're eating the casualties very well so far. Even though they're eating artillery and musketry. Right. Let's refocus our artillery here. Oh, are they, have they gotten themselves in a really derpy little position here? Yeah, this unit can see, this unit cannot see. Why exactly? Good question, honestly. Let's try pushing them a little bit further forward, then. Which is probably going to obscure this unit, so let's push that a little bit further forward as well. I'm tempted to move over the 12-pounders. In fact, I'm more than tempted. I think that is exactly what I'm going to do. And instead, we'll have the 24-pounders moving up here to try and provide a little bit of extra support. 1st Brigade, 433 casualties to 102, so we're trading 4-1. Not at all bad. Over here, this unit has fought 2 enemies, and it has reduced 700 casualties. Ow, jeez. I'm tempted to allow this unit to pivot a little bit for... Oh, now that's a mistake. Yeah, now that's... No. That is big-oo mistake you. Again, the artillery is trying to pivot in relations to the units it's attached to. So they're moving as an entire formation rather than as individuals. And that's the problem, because the AI has made this move assuming that I hadn't stacked up a move, which I had. That artillery is in for a really awful time. Really awful time. As the infantry begins moving up, I am going to cut off my own artillery's line of sight, but honestly, that is not going to be a problem. As we are going to be point-blank range against their artillery batteries, and they are going to be absolutely mercilessly slaughtered right there. Yep, that is going to be an absolute nightmare for the guns. Now, unfortunately, my AI, too, notices that there is an enemy in front of me and immediately begins kind of freaking out a little bit, like, holy shit, okay, how do I deal with this? Where are my fields of fire? Can I advance? Do I need to stop? Can I move to the side? No. This unit is currently locked essentially in combat, so it's going to continue to block my advance for quite a little bit of time, until I can try and issue it a new order, which I'm going to try and do now. It might not even want to obey this order, though, because as far as it is concerned, it is currently engaged to the front, and so might not be overly interested in trying to shimmying off to the side. Though, seeing as the enemy artillery is breaking, that should not be as big of an issue. How's my reserves coming along, by the way? Coming along quite nicely, in fact. Right, they've begun their move, but you can see they're a little bit hesitant. They move a little bit, and then they kind of stop a little bit. There we go. You can also indeed capture enemy artillery, which, if you are not sure that you will be the victor of the battle, is a very good idea. However, right now, I am genuinely feeling rather confident, if I'm to be entirely honest. So confident, in fact, that I think we are going to set up a bit of a proper flanking movement. Unfortunately, this unit has derped, so it's not going to be moving properly, but we'll just have to deal with that. There's no other big movements. Oh, yeah. See, there's no other big movements on my flank, is there? Well, speaking of that, that could be a very large problem. We are going to have to hope that the enemy over here is currently remaining very passive. So I think I am going to spare Chetham's brigade to go back up the infantry over there. that is going to put me in a really, 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 really shitty order situation as well. Right. Breaking this front suddenly got a hell of a lot more important, as I need to free up some troops. Alright, Pillow. You are going to be attacking. So begin pushing as soon as you can. These infantry units are routing. Now, you can rally routing units, but once they've started taking casualties of this magnitude... Well, these are green troops. They are more than likely going to F the hell off at that point. They're unlikely to want to stay and fight after taking that kind of a beating. I'm very tempted to order my units here under price to begin advancing as well, but I do have two relatively intact brigades in front of me, so I think we're going to have to calm down in that regard for at least the immediate time being. Very well. I might want to consider start moving some artillery as well. That's a lot of brigades forming up in front of me there, and they might even be trying to go all the way around my side. But you can see the victory counter is getting awfully far in my favor, so hopefully I can end this entire battle on this one day and see the enemy retreat. There's also a retreat phase, incidentally, where you might be able to do a lot more passive damage to the enemy, as they will of course be trying to disengage whilst your units will be trying to engage them. In fact, we are seeing an organized withdrawal over here, so that might actually be the second army. No, I think they might have launched a general withdrawal. Good. This is another thing. So, I haven't really been able to get to the super late game because the campaign AI isn't really good enough, frankly. But I notice that units will be a little bit more interested in continuing fighting the higher veterancy they get. And this is apparently also an actual in-game mechanic, in that they will be far more difficult to rout, which is fair enough. I'm hoping that that might also be on an army level, so that once an army gets more experienced, it will be able to see the withdrawal of parts of the army without actually seeing the entire formation buckle and break. As right now, I've only probably routed one division. But because that one division is under the command of the Central Army Command, the casualties will feel like it's the entire army taking casualties. And so this division over here will also begin to withdraw because of the casualties caused to this division. Yes. That is a rather unfortunate set of circumstances. Right, well, I will issue them the order to just straight up begin assaulting and following now. And also to deploy whatever skirmishers they may have. But I think the enemy is probably going to be able to withdraw relatively safely. This is one thing the AI does do quite well. It tends to, as you can see over here, it'll leave the infantry a little bit staggered, so that if you send out a pursuit party, the AI will actually have some infantry units standing behind the lines, ready to try and slow you down whilst the rest of them withdraw. It's also very difficult to carry out an actually effective pursuit, as the AI can be rather cowardly. Though again, the artillery AI needs a lot of work because it tends to be left behind all the time, because it can't move as quickly as the infantry, and so it's, kind of just struggles to keep up with everything else. And the infantry excuse me, is not good enough to actually remain behind in a rear guard capacity always. I have seen it do so successfully on occasion, but certainly not reliably by any stretch of the imagination. You may also notice that Price's assault stance is doing absolutely goddamn nothing. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. Yes. Pillow as well. Pillow is attempting to push, but he is being very, very careful about it, which is unfortunate, because he could really lay into some retreating artillery here if he was just a little bit more feisty. Dum-da-dum. Gotta stop and reload our weapons for some god-awful reason. There we go, that's some damage. Lovely. Some more free Union guns. Always wonderful. You should never say no to repeated Union armaments. See, this is what I was talking about too. This has actually left behind a rearguard unit to try and protect its retreat, which is way better than what this part of the AI so clearly did. Right, so this, I imagine, has been a rather long little review video, but I wanted to give you a good taste of the combat as well, warts and all. The campaign gameplay is really cool. I really like the grand strategy elements. I like them a lot. They're super awesome. I like the economy aspect of it too, and I really like the ability to form up your units, to give them custom uniforms, give them commanders, the word I'm looking for, promote your commanders as they gain fame. They have all kinds of stats and stuff. All of this is really, really, really cool. The tactical gameplay as well, the ability to level up perks on your individual units, on your armies, to specialize them with particular weaponry, to build fortifications that evolve during the playthrough as well, by the way, so you can build even more intricate defenses. All of this is super awesome. The kind of slow, skirmishy style of it, the extended exchanges of musketry. I love the pacing. I love the presentation. I love the goddamn battle map. Unfortunately, the development team simply has too much in the way of ambition, which, God, it is a good thing. It is an actually good thing. It is good, and it should be lauded. It absolutely should be. They tried to do something that was probably outside of their expertise to actually do. They wanted to have a fairly realistic, high-level, simulatory-style tactical gameplay where you have to send out orders to the units. And I love the idea of it, but the AI is just simply not capable of really carrying it out. That's the issue. The AI needs to be a lot better. And unfortunately, the problem is the AI is the hardest thing to actually do properly. Real-time strategy AI is super goddamn difficult. It is really, actually, genuinely hard. Nevertheless, though, I have a hard time recommending it because of the AI problems, which are a real issue, because it does make the game way too bloody easy. Way too goddamn easy. But at the same time, I want to applaud them for trying, and for doing so relatively well with the limited resource at hand. This is a very small little team that made this incredibly intricate and very interesting game. So what I think I'll say is this. If you are a fan of the US Civil War and you want a tactical, relatively kind of realistic experience, this is the best on the market right now, no doubt about it. If you're more of a casual person, however, who just kind of wants a tactical strategy, the limited AI is probably going to lead to more frustration than it's worth. But again, if you want a game like this, get it. Like, this is the best that you are going to get right now, and probably the best you're going to get for a very long time, since, well, we're going to have to wait for somebody to figure out how to make actually good AI, which is probably going to take another couple decades, unfortunately. Anywho, wrapping up an already far too long video for the algorithm's sake, and on that note, if you made it this far, leave a like, leave a comment, and help poor Arch out with his lengthy videos. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.